بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. ثم الصلاة والسلام على خير خلقه وأشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين محمد وعلى آله الطاهرين وصحبه المنتجبين. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. Praise be to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Lord of here and the hereafter. We praise Him as a thanksgiving to the guidance that we receive from Him, because without that guidance we would have gone astray. We convey our greeting and salutation to the Holy Prophet of Islam and his pure progenies. Sisters and brothers, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to another session where we do not specifically deal with the tafsir of Quran. We focus on specific issues. Tonight, I would like to address a question that has been sent repeatedly to shed light on a number of nouns, terms, whatever we call them, that became apparent as we addressed the story of creation of Adam, or the Genesis story. And these are Adam, Iblis, Insan, Bani Adam, Shaitan, Shayateen, Malaika, and Jinn. The creation story, right at the beginning, as it unpacks itself, we have talked about this before. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala informs the angels that He intends to create a vicegerent. And He commands the angels to bow in recognition, not submission, in recognition of the lofty place that Adam has within this story of creation. Immediately, one person stands out. فَسَجَدَ الْمَلَائِكَةُ كُلُّهُمْ إِلَّا إِبْلِيسَ. So two names right from the beginning, Adam and Iblis. If we look at the Holy Quran through various passages and verses in the Holy Quran, the word Adam has been used 25 times in the Holy Quran, and is always in a singular format, which is in reference to a single person. And if we want to identify that person, is Abul Bashar, or the father of the creation, the father of all human beings. So there is only one Adam. In opposition to Adam, a singular Adam, there is one evil power or evil reality called Iblis. Iblis, again, a name repeated in the Holy Quran 11 times, but in 10 times in direct confrontation with Adam. So Adam and Iblis are the two conflicting parties right from the beginning. Iblis is designated a position that, from the verses in the Holy Quran, a position that he disobeys the command of Allah to bow in recognition to the creation of Adam. Both of them, as I indicated just now, are singular. Then we come across Insan, which technically comes from ins, equivalent in the translation human. Bashar is another term used here. So we have Insan, Bashar, and Adam, three different nouns or words. Adam is always singular in reference to one particular person. Insan is in reference to the whole, anybody that falls within the category of human being. So when Ya ayyuhal insan is in reference to the whole human being. when used to refer to physical reality of this creation, Quran uses the word bashar. In the story of Surah Maryam, in the story of Maryam, when Malaika comes, the angel comes and informs her that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has granted her this privilege of being a mother, the mother of this prophet, unique prophet. What does she respond? وَلَمْ يَمْسَسْنِي بَشَرٌ. How can I have a child when no bashar, no physical reality has taken place, or physical contact has taken place? In the story of Prophet Musa, أَنُؤْمِنُ لِبَشَرَيْنِ مِثْلَنَا. How can we believe in two bashar, two human physical realities outside, similar to us? Allah خلقكم من تراب ثم إذا أنتم بشر. This is now synonymous with the concept of insan. So bashar means this physical reality. Whenever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to refer to the spiritual reality of human being, uses the word insan. يا أيها الإنسان إنك كادح إلى ربك كدحا فملاقيه. In your spiritual journey and a struggle towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you have to struggle. Now, insan and bashar, two physical distances. So, and then physical and spiritual differences. Then we have Bani Adam, which is designation of a name to all the sons and daughters, all the children of Adam are called Bani Adam. Then we come to Shaitan. So remember, Iblis is a term used primarily for that individual character that stood up and did not submit to the command of Allah and did not recognize Adam as the superior individual. But Shaitan, which is repeated in the Holy Quran 90 times, comes both in a singular meaning and in a plural term, which means whenever Quran uses in different passages in a singular term, it is synonymous with Iblis. But when it is used in the plural term, it refers to evil realities that we talked about in the past. يا أيها الناس كلوا مما في الأرض حلالا طيبا ولا تتبعوا خطوات الشيطان. Singular. This is synonymous with Iblis. So Iblis, in a singular form, when direct confrontation takes place between Adam, Iblis is used. But when there is a confrontation between the entire race or category of human being, Shaitan is being used, both in a singular and a plural term. وَلَا تَتَّبِعُوا خُطَوَاتِ الشَّيْطَانِ. Now, it's synonymous with Iblis. الشَّيْطَانِ يَعِدُكُمُ الْفَقْرِ. If you follow Shaitan, which is Iblis in here. وَمَنْ يَتَّخِذِ الشَّيْطَانِ وَلِيًّا. Again, here is singular. Sometimes shayateen, the plural, are being used. Now this is collective. Inshallah, in the right time. I think in the past we talked about this in various verses. But shayateen al-jinn wal-ins, now it is in reference to evil realities that include the visible and the invisible. And soon we would discuss this. Then we come to jinn, an invisible reality. The word jinn is used in the Holy Quran 22 times. Now, before I continue with jinn, I would like to address something. The word shaitan in the Holy Quran is being used in 5 different categories or reference to it. Sometimes in reference to Iblis that I just pointed out. Sometimes in reference to invisible realities. In the story of Prophet Sulaiman alayhi salatu wassalam, وَالشَّيَاطِينُ كُلَّ بَنَّاءٍ وَغَوَّاسٍ. Invisible realities, invisible being, Allah have subjugated them to submit to the command of Prophet Sulaiman, and they are working as jinns, builders and divers for Prophet Sulaiman. So this is, shayateen is in reference to our invisible reality. Sometimes Quran uses the word shaitan in reference to sahir, the magicians. In Surah Al-Baqarah, ayah 102, وَمَا كَفَرَ سُلَيْمَانَ وَلَكِنَّ الشَّيَاطِينَ كَفَرُوا يُعَلِّمُونَ النَّاسَ السِّحْرَ. Sulaiman, the Prophet Sulaiman, did not become kafir and disobeyed. But shayateen here in reference to sahara, or those individuals, magicians that teach people magic or sorcery. Sometimes Quran uses the concept of shaitan in reference to the enemies of the Prophet. وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَا لِكُلِّ نَبِيٍّ عَدُوًّا شَيَاطِينَ الْإِنسِ وَالْجِنِّ. Every prophet, when they proclaim their own prophethood and begin the message, there will be visible and invisible enemies towards what they are going to proclaim and teach. So here, shaitan is the enemies of the Holy Prophet. And occasionally, the fifth category is for munafiq and the hypocrite. Surah Al-Baqarah, وَإِذَا لَقُوا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا قَالُوا آمَنَّا. In describing the hypocrite within the community, when they see the believers, they pretend to be believers and they say, we are believers. But وَإِذَا خَلَوْا إِلَى شَيَاطِينِهِمْ, once they go back to the other munafiqeen and the hypocrites, they say that we are with you, we are only taking a mockery out of these believers. So here, shaitan is being used in reference to the munafiqeen and the hypocrite within society. These are a number of contexts in which shaitan is being used. Now we go to jinn. Jinn, as I said, 22 times, and sometimes we have John 7 times and Jinnah as a plural 5 times. It refers linguistically to an invisible reality that we cannot see. And they have, similar to human being, both believers and non-believers. وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. That's a general criteria that they have to submit. And in Surah Al-Jinn, وَإِنَّا مِنَّا الصَّالِحُونَ وَمِنَّا دُونَ ذَلِكَ. There are believers and non-believers within this group of jinn. Now, this brief description of the various terms, nouns, and so on that we have that came to the surface as we discussed the story of Genesis and the creation story. Now we come to the second issue. Was Iblis a malaika or not? The implication for this debate is, we will address it soon in the third part of today's lecture. There are a group of people that say Iblis cannot be malaika. Why? Most people today, even if you speak to ordinary people, there is a preconceived idea that somehow angels are wired to submit to the command of Allah and they cannot commit sins. This is a question that we are asked repeatedly, that how can Iblis be part of malaika if malaika is supposed to be submitting to the command of Allah and not commit sin at all? That preconceived idea, because of it, then they say the first dalil or proof for being shaitan not being from the malaika is the fact that shaitan disobeyed. So it cannot be from malaika. Number 2, Surah Al-Kahf, verse number 50. فَقُلْنَا لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ اسْجُدُوا لَآدَمَ فَسَجَدُوا إِلَّا إِبْلِيسَ كَانَ مِنَ الْجِنِّ. The second proof, they say, well, the verse in the Holy Quran clearly stipulates that shaitan is from jinn. It cannot be from malaika. Third proof that they want, they say that there are verses in the Holy Quran that shaitan has dhurriya, or what they claim to be descendant or progenies. And malaika cannot have progenies, so they cannot be part of jinn. That's the first group. The second group counter this argument and the second school of thought. They say no, or shaitan was from the malaika. And then, first of all, they proved, or they cite the verse in the Holy Quran, وَإِذْ قُلْنَا لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ اسْجُدُوا لَآدَمَ فَسَجَدُوا إِلَّا إِبْلِيسَ. The exception here, إِلَّا إِبْلِيسَ. We commanded the malaika to submit to the command of Allah. Everyone submitted, إِلَّا, apart from Iblis. So linguistically, what comes after the exceptional clause must be part of the term that happened to be before exceptional clause. So you cannot say Iblis was not from malaika and somehow be excluded from the malaika. Then the term illa otherwise become meaningless. Then they begin to deconstruct the reasoning that the first school of thought provided to support its argument. Said, as far as your assumption that malaika somehow are wired to submit to the command of Allah and not commit any sins, we have no proof whatsoever in our text, whatsoever. So this is an assumption that cannot be supported either rationally or otherwise. As far as your assumption or your claim, kana min al-jinn, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Al-Kahf, verse number 50, does not intend to clear a further designation in front of malaika. He says that he was part of the invisible world. And there is nothing wrong with being malaika and at the same time being invisible. We get to this little bit later. The interpretation of dhurriya as progenies and descendant, this again is not something that can be proved, because dhurriya in Arabic language can be used to indicate followers, friends, supporters. Shayateen al-jinn wal-ins clearly states that followers of shaitan or shayateen can be ins. So the followers can be dhurriya of shaitan. The strongest argument that this school of thought actually presents, by the way, if you look at the scholars in this field, we have Majma' al-Bayan, Sheikh Tabarsi, and Sheikh Tusi in Tibyan, and Allama Tabatabai in Al-Mizan. These three major contemporary and scholars of the past, they have clearly indicated that they are of the opinion that shaitan was malaika, and then he disobeyed. The strongest support that these arguments they put forward is Sermon 192 of Nahj al-Balagha, Al-Qasi'ah, one of the longest, or possibly the longest sermon in Nahj al-Balagha, in which Amir al-Mu'mineen salawatullah salamu alayhi, literally foundation of this sermon rests on disobedience of shaitan from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in that beginning of that khutbah or sermon, Amir al-Mu'mineen clearly points out that the creation story or the Genesis story, Allah wanted to check which one of the malaika obeys and which one doesn't. Which one is humble, which one is arrogant. So clearly this notion that presupposes that malaika somehow do not do anything bad is rejected, refutes that argument. And then further within that sermon, next page, Amir al-Mu'mineen talks about the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not going, because of the takabbur of Iblis, is not going to allow any human being to go to heaven for a sin that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has already kicked out an angel from heaven. Imam clearly references to Iblis as angel that has been kicked out of heaven. So with these kind of proof, the notion that Iblis was malaika is a fact. Now, what is the consequence of this debate? The consequence is that we really need to revisit our understanding of malaika, jinn, shaitan, vis-a-vis insan. In the same manner that insan can be, Quran classifies insan in 3 different categories. As-sabiqun, as-sabiqun, the ones that have reached the highest level, and sometimes refers to the nafs within these people as nafsul mutma'inna, the essence of the soul. These are the one that call them the ahsan al-taqweem, ulaika al-muqarrabun. These are the top from human being. Then opposite this higher level is the asfal al-safilin. Sometimes Quran refers to lower than beast, because their nafs is nafs al-ammar. Then a third category, and calls them ashab al-shimal. The third category are somewhere in between. They are not as-sabiqun as-sabiqun, and they are not ashab al-shimal. They are the ones that Quran refers to as ashab al-yamin. And their nafs, their soul, is the nafs al-lawwama. It's not ammara anymore. Nafs has elevated itself into some kind of a higher position. If humans, the visible creation, can have these 3 categories, the invisible creation can have equal categories to these. So what happens in the human category, the visible category, that reaches as-sabiqun willfully, remember, this is the point, in the same manner that we reject the notion that asma is somehow a designation created for individuals without even their agency into it, because otherwise the whole issue becomes problematic. As-sabiqun as-sabiqun, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rewards them because it was done willfully. Despite the temptation, they managed to resist. Equal to as-sabiqun as-sabiqun in human being is the malaika in the invisible world. Amir al-Mu'mineen says the creation of Adam and the story of Adam, the Genesis story, Allah used it to prove or to show to the malaika which one was humble, which one was arrogant. So malaika can become humble and can become arrogant. As-sabiqun as-sabiqun within the invisible world, within the jinn world, which is the invisible, can become malaika. And this is the close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ashab al-shimal in human being, the nafs al-ammara, shackled with it, they cannot go, sometimes they drop to asfal al-safilin, lower than beast. In the jinn world, they become shayateen. This is why there are verses in the Holy Quran that talks about shayateen al-ins wal-jinn. There is a congruity between the fallen human being with the fallen jinn. And then somewhere in between, the medium level, are the ordinary jinns that have nafs al-lawwama, everything else. So we cannot simply assume that malaika, because they have submitted to the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, somehow they are immune from sinfulness and from making mistakes. Amir al-Mu'mineen salawatullah salam alayhi, regarding in this khutbah al-Qasi'ah, says that Shaitan abadallah either 6,000 years or 5,000 years, and he leaves the years open. He says we don't know whether it is the years of 365 days recognized by human being, or the days that we have on the Day of Judgment, that each day of it is equivalent to thousands of years. So Shaitan, what Amir al-Mu'mineen is trying to say, Shaitan submitted to the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for many, many, many centuries, if not millenniums. And yet, one test fell through, became arrogant. He could not understand, because he was from Jinn, the invisible, and the power that it has, somehow has to bow and accept and recognize the superiority of this new creation. So Jinn, the three categories, Malaika, Shaitan, and Jinn, although a broad category of invisibility, but like human being, insan, depending on where they stand vis-a-vis this continuum of closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or being far away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If they happen to be part of as-sabiqun within the invisible, they become the malaika. If they become the ashab al-shimal of the invisible, they become shayateen, and Iblis is one of them after the fall. And if they are somewhere in between, like the ashab al-yamin, they kind of behave neither the extreme this or the extreme that. So I hope this issue is clarified. Inshallah, as we go through the question and answer, we might be able to answer any further question regarding this issue. Thank you very much. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.